The actor was Wendy Phillips, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was 1989.
Was that 89?
1989. The relationship with the networks, did you want to comment about how it is working with the networks?
Well, I think for the most part, they're what they want to do is sometimes, oftentimes, different from what the actor, producer may want to do. And in this particular instance, I thought that they were a little afraid of this idea because it put them at sea. It's neither fish nor fowl. So how can we deal with it? And we know there's nothing funny about the racial situation. That's not humorous. It's not true, of course, but there is. And I felt that they could have been more helpful. But I must say that when one has an idea like this, you have to be dogged in your determination that it happened just as you see it. And you cannot brook equivocation. You must go straight ahead. The vision is all, is everything. And if you don't, you will run into trouble, and you'll be called names. Well, you're going to be called names under any circumstances. But if you don't make it, you are the one principally to blame. And I think I was rather naive in believing, because it was an idealistic position. It's something ideal about America. I mean, we've been struggling very hard here for, I don't know, at least 50 years to try to make it work for everybody, or for as many people as we can. And we've been trying to get away from the notion that certain people don't belong. I mean, every generation we come up against that notion, and our faith in the beautiful thing of America is tested. And too often we fail because I belong, but those people over there don't. And we continue to do that. It's totally ridiculous. But that was one of the things that I wanted to do with that show. And I must admit that when I look back on it, the concept is great, but I don't know whether we executed it as well as we might have. But there again, I have to take all blame myself because I didn't know, or I didn't expect opposition. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, how naive can you be?
Now,
go ahead.
When you left that, what did you do next? Phantom?
Ah, yes, I did Phantom. Was that 1990? Yeah, I did Phantom in 1990. And that's one of my most joyous experiences. I had always felt that musical theater was my bailiwick, because we talked about before that the first thing I did was Billy Bigelow in Carousel on the stage. And I didn't know beans about what I was doing. It was just, I just did it. But here I come up on Phantom 30 years later, and I know exactly what I'm doing. Again, I had reached the point where I said, I don't have to do anything. If I'm standing when the curtain comes down, I will have won. And But for me to reach these milestones was, for me, a great psychological lift, because it's the only way I could have done it. Had I gotten out on the stage in Phantom and started acting, I'd been dead. First of all, I'd have fallen into one of those pits or traps or something. I'd have come down those stairs and slipped on something, because I had on those high heels and that big hat, and I had the mouths stuff that was on audio somewhere. I had to lip sync it. I had so many things to think about. I don't know how in the hell I did it. I mean, other people have done it, and I don't want to give myself too much credit, but it was a frightening experience.
And how was it received?
Very well, as I remember.
Now,
it was interesting to be in a situation like that. Because once again, I mean, people said, he can't do that. Who's going to do it? Benson. He's going to do Phantom? That's ridiculous. But I knew I had them because that had been my background for 17 years on Broadway and for the experience at Caramel. I mean, I knew musical theater backwards and forwards, and I had the voice, but no one knew I could sing. But I was like what's that thing where they throw them in the briar patch? It was, that's where I was being thrown. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, don't throw me in the briar patch. And they threw him in, and that's exactly where he thrived. So that's what happened in Phantom. And I had people I thought I was effective, shall we say.
yes. Now, you returned to television. In '91, you did Pacific Station.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? And what was that about?
Again, they just, the two guys who were, Mort Nathan and Barry Finaro were the execs on that. It was coming out of Disney. And they had been writers on Benson. So they wanted to try to put me in it. And it was Ron Liebman, Richard Libertini, who else?
Megan Gallagher?
Megan Gallagher. And who else?
Bob Ballard, Ron Liebman, Richard Caparelli.
Richard Caparelli? I don't remember them, but at any rate, I think John Hancock was with us for a moment. Big John Hancock.
You co-hosted Disney's Great American Celebration with Connie Selica.
Mm-hmm.
Any Sheena Easton and Barbara Mandrell?
Well, no contact.
Okay. And then Mastergate.
Oh, that was an interesting thing. Whose piece was that?
That was for HBO, Larry Gelbart.
Larry Gelbart. That was interesting, yeah. Yeah, we had a good time with that.
Did you?
Jerry Orbach, and that's the first time I worked with him. I liked him very much.
Did you have any contact with Larry Gelbart?
No, I don't think so.
Now, you and, well, we haven't talked about your personal life.
Please don't.
Well, when you were young, you were married, right? And you had a couple of children. And then,
yeah.
To whom?
Marlene Scott. We had two sons, Kevin and Jacques. Jacques died in 1990 while I was in Phantom.
And Kevin?
And Kevin is a composer now, struggling to make his way.
And you divorced Marlene at some point, and you married again.
I married Donna Brown.
And how did you meet Donna?
I met Donna we were at a Japanese restaurant. We were there separately. And so she was looking for a friend of hers who she was meeting for lunch there. And she happened to be going around the restaurant to see if this person had come in. And she passed my table. And I was there with some people. I was there with the Benson crowd. So I saw her and I was struck by her beauty. And I went on with what we were doing, but she stayed on my mind. And so I went out and I wanted to see if she was still in the restaurant. And indeed, I found her in a corner somewhere. And I talked to her and whatnot. And I found out her sister and I had done Pearly. And I asked her, I said, well, where the hell were you? How come you never were around? And she said she was, etc. And we exchanged numbers. I think I said just enough to intrigue her. And we exchanged numbers, and I don't think we've been apart since.
Now, after you married, you had a daughter.
Oh, one of the loveliest people on the planet, Rachel.
And you also formed a publishing company, the Confetti Company?
Yeah.
And what was that for?
I don't know. Donna and I apparently shared the same idea about children's books, and that was that of all the extant ones, African Americans were largely ignored. Images of them weren't in these books. So I had talked to some people who had put together a book where they took the traditional fairy tales and they had made them multicultural. And so they asked me to narrate it. Well, I did, and through a series of events, I finally bought them out, and we took over that company.
And you publish books and tapes, audio tapes?
Audio tapes and read-along books. And we have about 8 titles of, what do we have? We have Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, Frog Prince, Sleeping Beauty,
number of others.
Yeah.
And then Donna, your wife, went to HBO.
Yeah. They met a woman called Merrill Marshall. She liked the books, and she had a connection with HBO, and HBO saw the books and liked the books and wanted to imitate the idea, and so they came up with Happily Ever After, which is a show on HBO as we speak.
And you are the narrator in that?
I'm the narrator in that. My wife and her partner, Merrill Marshall, are the executive producers. But this brings me to another idea too. This whole idea of multiculturalism. There was never a time when America was anything other than multicultural. It's always been multicultural. Because within these borders, we've always had all the people on the face of the earth at one time or another. And as we speak today, certain cities are turning entirely Asian. And it may be frightening to people that they may in time not be the majority But that is why it's so essential that we understand that multiculturalism isn't politically correct or incorrect. Multiculturalism is what America has always been. We've always been diverse, as I've seen it. Now, I don't know, am I addled?
When that series, in addition to that series, you're now back on in another series?
Yes, called Sports Night. A very nice experience.
And how did that come about?
They just, they auditioned me, and I sang Without a Song. They said, next.
And the creator of that show is?
Aaron Sorkin.
And what was the character? What's the idea of the character that was created that you play?
I play a character called Isaac Jaffe. Someday I'm going to ask him, do a story about how this black guy got a name like Isaac Jaffe. But so I auditioned and they liked me, and I must say it's one of the nicest characters I've ever had. It's a character without any, as I see it, gimmick in it. I mean, Benson could be seen as a gimmick, you know, something not quite legitimate.
Now, this show launched in 1998, and the cast is Peter Krause, Josh Charles, Felicity Huffman,
Right.
Joshua Malling, and Sabrina Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
And who are the directors?
The director is, our principal director has been Tommy Schlamme. Fabulous director. He's one of the exec producers. And it's from Ron Howard's company, Imagine Entertainment. And it's under Disney's aegis.
And who are the writers?
The writer is a very, very wonderful writer, one of the best in the business, Aaron Sorkin.
Now, your favorite episode of that, although I know it's still in the first season?
I don't know. I guess it's got to be the hunting episode, where we send one of our second stringers out to cover a hunting episode, and he dislikes what happens so much that he gets nauseous and faints and whatnot, and it gets back to me that he's had all this trouble, and so I'm just waiting for him when he comes back to give him a piece of my mind, because he could have told me before that this upset him and I wouldn't have made him go. I never knew he felt this way about hunting. But it was such a wonderful episode because Josh Malina had a monologue in there where he told me how, where he told me what happened to him. And in such poignant terms that I had never heard hunting put down like this. But it was a tribute to Aaron's writing. And Josh was saying that he saw the little doe, the baby doe, and the mother and the father. And he said, what? That's recognizable to any species on the face of the earth as a mother, a father, and the child. And he anthropomorphized the deer family. And then he said one of the guys came to him and said, hunting was a noble sport and this, that, and the other. And Josh said, well, that was a lot of crap. because when the Indians hunted, they did it for food and clothing and something else. But when we hunted, or when on this particular shoot, when it happened, he said, what we did was, it wasn't for food, and it wasn't for clothing, and it wasn't for any tradition. It was just plain mean.
Knowing that you've been in situation comedies now for such a long period of time, do you note differences in the way this comedy is created from the way the first one was that you were in soap?
I don't know.
Is the style of shooting any different, or the?
Well, we do this in film. The other one soap was in tape. And this is very fast directing, very fast. Many cams. And
do those change the demands on you as an actor?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. I don't know, in the sense that, well, now I certainly can't walk. I won't be able to do that anymore.
Now that's because you've had a stroke.
Yep. And I won't be able to keep, now I'll have to really get my walk back. I'll have to come back with my, I'll have to try to get back. But I doubt if I'll ever be able to do that again, the way that camera moves. I feel that it would be too fast for me.
Is that significantly different from the way the situation comedies were, or the soap, the style of soap and the style of Benson?
Yeah, I think it is different, in the sense that one of Tommy's penchants is to move the camera very fast. I don't know what he'd call it, but I just call it moving the camera fast.
And is it a show that plays for laughs in the same way?
No, it's more like a term that people have tried to use from time to time called dramedy, I think. Comedy and drama. Actually a lot of that took place in soap. Susan could write a little bit that way, but they're totally different writers. Susan was all laughs and all irony and wryness, and I think that soap was really spoofing wasps. It was a put down. I think that's what it was.
So it played on more than one level.
Yeah, yeah.
How important is it for you to keep working?
Oh, very. Very important for me. I don't know anything else. I mean, that's the only way I knew how to get out of the ghetto was to work. And so it's absolutely essential that I work.
And what do you think the main ingredients for a successful television series are, now that you've seen yourself in so many?
I would say script, memorable characters, and good actors. I mean, without those, you've got nothing. For me. Now, some of the things I see nowadays, they may have good actors, maybe. But things don't seem to depend so much on deftness of talent. It's just the arrogance or chutzpah to do things in front of a camera. If you're willing to make a fool of yourself, you can be a success today. And it passes for talent. Who am I to say it isn't? But it's never been enough for me.
And when you look back on your career, aside from the things we've spoken about, are there any other highlights that we've missed, or even among the things we've discussed, something about which you're the most proud?
No, I don't know. I think I'm proud most of my work on Sports Night, because I think it has defined something about how I like to play in front of the camera in a way that not even Benson did. I feel that some of the things I did on Benson are in Sports Night, but they weren't seen that way because Benson was thought of as simply a sitcom. But I think if people go back and look at it, they say, how did this guy do that? How could he make us laugh? And he was so serious, which was my aim.
Along the way in your career, any particularly influential people?
Well, of course, a seminal influence would have to be my grandmother, who really taught me the value of an education. I mean, without an education, I wouldn't be sitting here, I don't think. I would not have gotten to do many of the things that I've done in television. I certainly wouldn't have been able to play. I hope I'm not excessively congratulating myself, but I would not have been able to play with the aplomb had I not been unafraid of the English language. I always thought I used it well, loved to use it well, and it's always been a significant part of how I've functioned. I mean, one of the things that I'm most happy about with the stroke, for instance, is that I can still make myself understood, because I realize how lucky, how much of a bullet I dodged with this stroke, because had my voice been taken away from me, you would have heard such a caterwauling and whining that it would not have been possible to endure. It's like, oh, why me? Ah! I'd have done a Jimmy Swaggart in front of the, you know.
Okay.